Everything's expensive, nothing's in stock, and it's all because of the RAM cartel. So you've probably noticed that the price of everything has been going up. One of the major stories recently was the Steam machine. The price came out at over $1,000, and that's for the base model, not the model that comes with a controller, not the model that comes with a 2TB hard disk inside. But one interesting video that came out on Gamers Nexus showed a little interview with the staff who work at Valve, and they were saying basically they offer us a price on RAM. We say yes, and if we say no, they don't talk to us again. It sounded kind of suspect, right? Well, I watched the video by Yongye. He was talking about how these companies, there's like 3 main companies who control the RAM supply, and they're being sued in a class action lawsuit, I think. Will it actually change anything if it's broken apart? If they find a way to like reduce their ability to charge super high prices just so that they can sell at the normal prices to these companies that are making, you know, AI farms basically. Like, is there actually anything that can be done about it? Originally, when I watched the video, I felt very positive. I was like, wow, if someone is actually filing a class action lawsuit against these 3 companies so that they no longer have the power to hike up the prices for normal people and have the prices low for AI companies, that's a good thing, right? That means less power to these AI companies who are kind of replacing everyone's jobs anyway. And then finally, but more importantly, we can have things at a regular price. You know, we can buy computer components at a regular price. We can buy, hopefully, Steam machines, the prices would come down, cameras, all the things that I like to buy. Hopefully all the prices would become normal again. But I'm starting to think that really there isn't actually any hope in that direction. And the reason I think that is because obviously the whole goal behind this is that we shouldn't have the ability to own personal computers. Like, it's an attack on personal computing, right? AI, obviously very powerful. Originally, it just seems like, well, if we can get AI to do it, that's very powerful. We can do things at a much lower cost, and we might be able to make projects that weren't even possible because it was just too prohibitively expensive. But the real cost of AI is not how the cost is going up in terms of the bill that we have to pay every month for AI costs. The real cost is that you can't work without it. You often require the AI to maintain the thing. You need the AI to make more of the thing. And once you rely on a cloud computer because you don't own your own computer, that means you have to pay the subscription. And once you stop paying the subscription, you don't have a PC anymore. You might not have a machine on your desk that can edit videos anymore. If I only had a cloud computing machine, and you know, it's basically a Chromebook that just opened up a browser window for me to do my editing, if I didn't have the internet, if I didn't pay my subscription, and if the subscription had gone up to like $50 a month, like before, do you remember like software? It's like, okay, subscriptions, people will only pay $5 to $10 a month. You know, people are paying Adobe subscriptions of like, what, $60 to $100 a month? It's great. It gets really expensive. I bought Final Cut Pro a long time ago, and my license hasn't expired yet. But as you can see, even Apple is like trying to move into the subscription model. Who knows how long I'll still be able to use the old version? Like maybe all the new MacBooks will have special processors in them that don't work with the old software. It seemed kind of hopeful when I saw that video, like, the RAM cartel, we finally figured out who the villain is, and if we can just keep them in line, maybe the prices will come down. But I just don't see that happening because obviously the game plan, whoever it is that is puppeteering this whole thing, they want normal people to have as little power as possible. Why? Because the less power you have, the harder you have to work, and the more that they can control where your money goes, if you have any money at all, anywhere. Anyway. And the most obvious one is personal computing. It's not in their best interest that you actually have access to a computer. With a computer, you have the power to create things, play whatever games you want, whenever you want, rip DVDs to your hard disk if you want to, rip CDs to your music collection if you want to. If you always had to go through the cloud, they could just not offer you any software that would allow that sort of thing to happen. If you engaged in piracy, you wouldn't be able to do that either. But again, there's a big talk about piracy and how Sony has just removed 551 like movie titles that people had purchased already. But in the fine print, it does say, we reserve the right to just remove your licenses because, sometimes licenses run out. Sorry, not totally our fault. So yes, I am still interested to know, like, what is the main game plan? Because I still see some discrepancies in, like, the supply and demand. It's like, they want us to be poor, but they want us to spend a lot of money. And that aspect of it, I still don't really understand the math, but I do feel like it's obvious to me that no matter what goes on with this, like, lawsuit, I don't think the prices will actually come down on things because they'll find a way, whoever it is this puppeteer is, they'll find a way to make sure that we still can't afford personal computing because that's our way out, right? If we have personal computers, we can buy what we want, keep what we want, stay offline if we want to, and just enjoy what we've already downloaded or watch the physical DVDs and physical media. If we're all stuck on the cloud because we can't afford our own personal computers, then they have full control over how much money you spend. Obviously, that's a really important one. But then again, the talk could go into politics. They could only show you certain political opinions that they want you to have. One of the most obvious ones is the big D company. At first, when I saw new versions of Star Wars, I think they actually issued DVD versions of the Star Wars movies with like the CG added. But then I started to watch certain movies where scenes had just, been completely changed. Like, isn't the most obvious one is like who shot first? It's like Han Solo. It's like they changed that scene like 3 or 4 times. It's like Han shot first. Actually, they shot at the same time. And it's frustrating because obviously companies, if they behave badly, we can usually go through the footage and go like, oh, because look at what they did in the past. But if they can just revise the past so that you never know what the old version looks like because you don't have access to it anymore, you'll kind of wish that you had a physical computer. And it just seems to me like it's in their best interests that you don't own a physical computer. They need to make it so prohibitively expensive, or at least they need to make AI look so much better by comparison in terms of like cost value, that you would just use their cloud system instead of owning your own computer. I can't remember which YouTube thumbnail it was, but the thumbnail said something along the lines of owning a computer is like the millennial version of the boomer generation saying, why don't you just buy a house? It's quite obviously it's much harder for people to buy a house now, which is kind of why I made some of the more recent videos that I did. If there's so much media content out there teaching us to be happy with what we have, it's okay for you to own less. In fact, you should own less. It actually goes to the dieting habits of people. It's like, actually, it's good to be skinny. You should be really skinny. You should be emaciated. You should have absolutely no nutrition on your body whatsoever because that's the in thing. When actually the truth is, we don't want to pay you enough to eat healthy food that would actually keep your body nourished. I don't know where it's all going, but this thing with the RAM cartel, at first I was quite excited. I was like, finally, someone's figured out who the villain is here. Maybe the prices will come down again. And then I realized that the RAM cartel is only one cog in the machine, which is like trying to make sure that people stay, one, poor, and that when they do have money, they control where that money goes to. They're probably only one cog in this machine. Obviously, there are plenty of other components and places where they could change the supply chain so that it's still prohibitively expensive to own anything. Remember, like, the issue here is ownership. If you could own things, they would have no power over you. You'd be too content. You'd be too happy with your life. And it's not that they want you to be sad. They just want to control when you're happy. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say, really, is just question the idea that maybe taking down the RAM cartel would actually make a huge difference. I really want to believe that it could. Like, I still think about and look up these prices of these things that I want to buy. And I'm like, okay, sometimes maybe whatever, I'm just not supposed to have a Steam machine, I guess. And then other times I'm like, but then maybe if they take down the RAM cartel, if prices could come down just $200, maybe I could afford it. And then I'm just like, no. Why would they allow that to happen? Why would they allow the prices to come back down again? It makes no sense, right? What company in their right mind would make everyone okay with the idea of a higher price and then, given the opportunity, lower the price? You don't see it happen very often, except with the Fujifilm X-Half, which keeps going down in price, which I think is an interesting example, but not one to talk about here because that's a photography related thing. So let me know what you think. Is there hope if the RAM cartel is disbanded, or if there's regulation on how they sell their products, that we could actually have prices come back down to realistic levels, that we could actually all afford Steam machines, which is what seems like the whole point. It seems like an affordable PC that you could have in your house that actually runs Linux, so you can escape Windows, you can escape expensive machinery, and you could live your life in Steam, which is the great, amazing place where everything is wonderful, supposedly. Could it happen? Could those prices come back down? Or is it more likely that if they take down the cartel, actually everything will still be bad, and we'll still have this attack on ownership continue, and we'll just end up owning nothing and being happy? Let me know what you think. That's all for this one. I've been NihongoGamer. I'll see you real soon.